Hi, my name is Sarah Nolan. I have a BFA in printmaking, and all of my pieces are one of a kind and made with lots of love and color. So, in a lot of my pieces, I use monoprints, and I love the process of doing monoprints because you never know what you're going to find until you take off that paper. And I find it like very exciting, especially using a lot of colors and seeing how they layer on top of each other, and also printing the back of the paper too, just so when you look at them, there's no white space in the area. And I usually cut those up and see how they look against one another. And I usually start with the back of the paper first and work from there and work up and build up. And the wallpaper will kind of tell me where to go with the piece. So monoprinting, it's kind of like a ghost image of whatever you lay down. You're gonna have that outline of that object or shape. Or with leaves, you'll see the veins in them after you take off the piece of paper, depending on how hard it's pressed down. And you ink up each color individually, and you can print on top of them. So each color you see is gonna be how many times it went through the press. And with monoprinting, after you print it, you only get 1 or 2 goes at it before you have to start from scratch again. So it's very one of a kind and unique, and it's always exciting because you never know what you're gonna find, or sometimes you won't like it and you keep adding on it, and that's when you get a whole bunch of cool things going on in one piece of paper. So my main focus in all of my art that I want people to take away is the fact that color is very important. And I feel like we're losing color throughout the world, and also losing natural landscapes and forests and flora. So I think it's important to be reminded of like what the world could look like if we didn't have a lot of urbanization, and how really seeing what flora can do if it was in its own environment without it being interrupted. Right. So my main inspiration is definitely lots of color. And I love anything that shimmers or sparkles. And I usually tend to find one base color, like in this, it's the blue, and I'll work from that and see what colors will work well against it. And taking away some, or if it's not working, using it, saving it for another piece, and trying to just make as many colors as possible in an artwork, but still have it be very cohesive and it looked like it matches within that piece. So this piece in particular, I was very excited about the paper that I found for the base of it, and I wanted to see how it would look and get a tropical feel. And it was during the summertime, so I was very excited to start seeing the sunlight and all the colors. And this is the first piece where I started doing the cutouts in the paper besides the background, and playing with the different types of papers. We have a glossy and a matte and a shiny, and seeing how those play together. And then also playing with the different colors of the monoprints and seeing how much color it can get in one piece without it being too overwhelming, and starting to introduce some fiber objects as well. And this one is one of my favorites. I was really excited about doing it too because this is when I first started introducing handmade paper with flower press in it, which was really fun, and also trying to be a little bit more muted but still having a lot of color within it. And also playing with the different textures of the shiny paper, the matte, and the handmade paper, and then just having the monoprints be a little extra add, but not having it be too overwhelming. And this one's supposed to be a little bit more minimal compared to the other ones. Handmade paper is a really fun process. It's super messy though, but I would definitely take like a whole day to do it. But you take paper pulp, or sometimes I take paper scraps, and I'll blend it with some water, and I'll make the pulp and have then a big bin of water, and you pour the pulp in there, and you take a decal, and you can make it out of a picture frame, and then having chicken wire on it, and then you run it through the water and the pulp and drain it, and then you put it on a towel or a piece of cloth, and then you'll have your paper. And it's always fun too because it looks completely different when it's dry than when it's wet. So it's similar to monoprinting, that you never really know what's going to look like. So this one's a perfect example of when I was talking about the wallpaper being the main focus for me starting to create them and adding the monoprints to them. I really was inspired by the jungle in the background, and if you look, there's a cheetah right in here. So I was trying to make it seem like the cheetah is hiding in like the foliage and almost laying in the background and waiting for its prey to come out. But then I wanted to make it really stand out with all the different colors, like you would see if you actually were in that environment and it was left like untouched by humans. So I wanted to really capture that essence of that and doing the cutouts and making you look through different elements and different layers and trying to actually like find what it is or what you're looking at. Sometimes I'll use wrapping paper or gift paper, cellophane. I went to the wallpaper store right down the street, January's, and they gave me a whole bunch of wallpaper books for free. And I was really excited about that and just like able to go through those books and cut them up. Really anything. I've gotten like cards that I've cut up or for frames, the photo image on it of like the flowers, I'll cut that up. But really, it's whatever I can find in that moment. And sometimes it's really random, or sometimes I go searching and paper sourcing. But sometimes it's even just regular construction paper, depending on what I'm looking for. If I want like a lot in the background, like this one, or making it just whatever I can find that speaks to me in that moment. So this one, my main focus was the wallpaper and trying to get the colors that work best with the monoprints and not overwhelm the color of the background, because sometimes I do like when it's playing back and forth between both of them, or sometimes I prefer the background to stand out more, or sometimes the monoprints I like to stand out more than the rest. It just depends on the piece. But this one I wanted to be able to like bounce back and get a good look at both of them, and they're not really competing with each other but more like helping each other. So how I start working with them, I pick out the wallpaper, which I got from January's in the wallpaper books, which is great. And then I start slowly like working in one section and working my way up or down or left or right, but mainly like choosing one focus point and building on top of that one. And I started in this corner right here and started working up. At a certain point, I'll be able to step away because I don't want it to be too overwhelming. And when I step away, I'll know when it's done. And then from there, halfway through the piece, I'll start doing the little cutouts in the middle. And then continuing to add more where I feel like it needs it, or maybe some areas are lacking more than the other ones. And then after that, I'll have a whole square with just the monoprints and the wallpaper. And then I'll start cutting out the shapes and following the lines of the wallpaper to kind of tell me what shape it's going to end up being, because sometimes I do prefer the rectangle and sometimes I don't. But in this case, with the flowers and the petals, square would not be as good. So I was following the wallpaper and seeing where it wanted to go and like what it wanted to look like, and definitely more of a softer edge for this one. So this one is probably my most unique one, even though they're all different than each other, but this one is the only one in the gallery that has the flora also with it. And at first I was very not sure if I should add that or not, because I didn't want it to be too overwhelming, but I started in the middle and spread out that way, and then I did the cutouts after to kind of get more open space and also seeing how I could break up just everything that was going on in the middle. And then from there I went down to add the tendrils coming down with a different wallpaper, and I did want the white space in it. Usually the monoprints I leave, there's color in every single area that you look in, but I did want some of the white, especially because the wallpaper is cream and I really wanted to get that balance off each other. But when I stepped back and I looked at it, before this wasn't there, it was very bottom heavy, and I just needed something to help balance the whole piece out. And also, since I do look at flora a lot, I thought it would be a great element to add, and that's how the top came to be. So all the pieces, they're very fun to make and very intuitive process, and I really enjoy making each and every single one of them. But they definitely read very different in person than in photos and in video. So I would definitely come down to Summit Art Space and take a peek at them in person and see what you think and interpret them how you would like.